Hello, welcome to Urban Ink Spot. For today's video, we're going to do something a little bit different. So I'm not going to be doing a haul, or I'm also not going to be doing a pen tour or a currently inked, but rather what I want to do today is more of a reflection. So I started my fountain pen journey in late 2020, probably around November, December 2020. And ever since then, I've been thinking about how I want to collect fountain pens. And I've kind of settled on the more slow collection, the more slow intentional acquisition process. And over time, I've come to find that I prefer to not collect more pens, but rather customize how my nibs write. And that's what's really helped me fall deeper in love with the pens I already own. So one of the things I had talked about on an earlier video is that I wanted to share with you some of the pens that I have had custom ground and really take you behind the scenes of that process to talk about the grinds, the stories, the relationships, and how it's shaped the way I write and how I think about my collection. And then talk about why I have chosen and why you might also choose to customize your fountain pens. So why have I chosen to customize? Well, I live in a small New York City apartment, and so space constraints are a real factor. And I've talked about this a little bit already on my channel, and maybe I don't always know how to articulate what I mean, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that even more than space considerations, I realized I didn't really want to just grow my collection. What I've really started to do is want to learn how to grow into it. So, the new pen releases will come out, and I am certainly not immune to seeing the new things that are out there and thinking, oh, I want to acquire more and expand my collection. But what I've been trying to do, instead of buying a new pen every time I get that inspiration or get the itch, is really to start asking myself a different kind of question. And what I've been asking myself is, what if I refined what I already have? And what I'm beginning to learn about myself and about my collection is, for me, sometimes the answer isn't more, it's better. And what I mean by better is maybe a better fit, or a better experience, or a better connection with my pen collection. So I want to share really with you an experience, or a couple of experiences that have deepened this process for me. And, I recognize that I have the good fortune of getting to work with some of the same nibmeisters over time. Now, in August 2024, I attended the Osaka Stationery Fest. And while I was waiting in line I was waiting for my appointment to sit down with Gina Salarino of Custom Nib Studio, the person ahead of me was saying, Gina knows how I write, and nobody can get my fine points quite as fine as they do. And that really clicked for me, because a great nibmeister really becomes more like a tailor, or someone who asks questions, who gives you options to consider, really comes to understand your preferences and can help shape your tools around how you want to use them. And this really wasn't the first time I had Gina work on a pen. My very first pen show in Philly 2024 is when I went to see Gina. Now, I got to the pen show. It was my very first time, and their time slots were already completely full up. And I had heard Gina's name as a really excellent nibmeister, so I stopped by their table the second I got there, and I went to talk about how much I really wanted a journaler nib. Now, that pen really feels like it has just that much more sentiment to it. And what I ended up getting from Gina over the times I've sat at their table is not really a nib grind as much as it is a creative partnership. And it's that relationship that's made me think about pens and the custom grinds more as a collaboration. So it's not really just about what is in my hand, but it's how I got there. So I would say my collection is probably about 25 pens, and 6 of them have modified nibs. And how many is that? 6 out of 25, I'll do the math. But I want to feature a few of them for you today. So if you'd like to see more so these are all the ones that I have either custom ground or have been modified by a nibmeister. But if you do want to see more about my custom nib grinds in a future video, just let me know, because I'd really love to share more about how I've selected which pens I've wanted to modify. So the first pen I've ever had modified, it is the very first gold nib pen I ever purchased, actually. And this was modified by cursive to be a juicier, wetter writer. This was not actually ground by cursive. But this is a Sailor Pro Gear Slim Fire, very first gold nib pen I ever purchased. And other than this modification, these 6 are the ones that I've actually had custom ground. So what I want to do today is feature these 3 pens, and we'll move these over to the side, and we'll talk a little bit about what I've had done with these pens. So let me move this over here. I'll pull out my my little fountain pen channel journal, and we will talk through what's been modified. So the Esterbrook Estie is the first one I want to feature today. And this is an Esterbrook Estie in Botanical Gardens. And this pen originally started as a broad nib. And this is in a steel broad nib. And I chose the broad because it has a lot of tipping already on the material here at the end. And I knew that I was going to see Gina at the Stationery Festival, and this is when I had this pen ground. So this pen was ground into a smooth italic. I'm not sure if it has an S at the end of it. I probably should have checked that before the beginning of the video. So this is inked with Sailor Zaregokuro. And the Sailor Zaregokuro is like a purpley, somewhat red plum. It is one of my favorite inks that I have in my collection. And like I said, this was originally a broad nib with a lot of tipping, and I had this ground by Gina Salarino into a smooth italic. And so why did I choose to have this pen ground into a smooth italic? Well, I was sitting at Gina's station, and I had 2 different appointments with Gina. I was sitting at the station originally, and I knew that I wanted to buy this pen. And I went over to the Esterbrook table, and I selected a broad nib specifically because I knew that it had a lot of tipping. And I sat down at the table and I just started. There were a number of samples that had been previously ground into different grinds that were available. And I really liked the way that the smooth italic wrote. Interestingly, I was getting 2 nibs worked on in that appointment, and I had selected one with one grind, and then this, I had actually selected a different grind for it. And as Gina was starting to work on the grind, I was like, wait a minute, is it too late to change my mind? Fortunately, it wasn't. Gina hadn't started that part of the grind yet, so I was able to actually get the smooth italic. And this is a beautiful writer. What I really like about it is how expressive the writing experience is with such broad tipping, and also the line variation as I write with this pen. So I will do just a small writing sample here. And so this is my Esterbrook Estie Botanical Gardens with a broad nib that was ground by Gina Salarino of Custom Nib Studio into a smooth italic. The second pen that I want to feature is my... Actually, which one do we want to do? Let's do my Pilot Elite 95S next. And this is inked with Robert Oster chocolate. And this is a newer ink in my collection. Now, this was originally a medium nib that I had ground into a cursive italic. This pen was also ground by Gina Salarino of Custom Nib Studio. And you can see as well, the downstrokes are a little wider, the cross strokes are a little narrower, and I really do love writing with this pen. It seems to me that every time this pen is inked, doesn't really matter what it's inked with, I am reaching for this pen all the time. And so when I say that I'm interested in growing how I feel about my collection and really growing into it and customizing my pens so that I'm reaching for them, this is exactly the pen that I had in mind when I say that. So for a writing sample, and here is how that looks as I write with it. And you can definitely see the line variation as I use this pen. And you can kind of see it in the cross strokes here, and as it adds some flourish and embellishment to my writing. This is really one of my I love this pen. I mean, actually, if you go back to some of my earlier videos, some of the other pens in the lineup didn't even get as much love because I kept reaching for this one. And then the final pen that I want to feature here, for any of you who have been on my channel before, you may have seen me gushing about this ink. And it's been inked in this pen for a while. This is the only bit that remains. But this is a TWSBI Diamond 580. And within these 3 pens, this one is the least expensive, but it's beautiful. And I really like writing with it, so I asked Gina again if I could get this one customized. So this is my TWSBI Diamond 580, and this is inked with, no surprise to anyone who's been on my channel before, this is Colorverse Shiny Black. And this one was originally a medium nib that has been ground into a we don't know. Now, this pen I had ground by Gina, and I wasn't really paying a lot of attention on what it is that we actually selected, but I was looking for something with some flourish. And I suspect that you can kind of tell when I'm going to do these downstrokes versus the cross strokes, you're going to be able to see a pattern here that I am enjoying the flourish that is added whenever I have the narrower cross stroke versus the downstroke. So I do believe that this is in the italic family. But I'm not sure if this is a cursive italic or a sharp italic or a smooth italic. I just know that this general style of nib grind is what I was looking for. And so Gina I know they told me what it was. I don't remember what it was. And it's funny, whenever I write with this pen, I love the flourish. I want to just write more expressively. It really draws that out in me when I'm using this pen. So, I would say that in my experience, customizing a nib is not the least expensive route that you could go. Let's just put them all here in frame so that you can see them as I talk about them. So customizing a nib really isn't the most inexpensive option. And in fact, you can actually get a nib grind that costs more than the pen itself because there are plenty of inexpensive pens available that you might choose to modify. But for me, the return on the investment on growing into my collection and modifying my nib grinds is that return on the investment has really been huge because these pens they're not display options for me. They're actually daily tools. And I write work notes and I write journals and I spend a lot of time using these on a regular basis. So when one of them feels just right in my hand, I write with it more and I find myself writing more and I notice more. And I wouldn't say that I set out to be on a low-buy path or anything, but I just found that when I made what I had better, I needed less, but I enjoyed it more in a way that is completely unique to me. So, I don't know. I mean, I do have a little bit of trouble articulating what I want to call this. Slow collecting, maybe? I don't know. But I can tell you that for me, it's been deeply, deeply satisfying. So that's a little peek into my custom nib grinds and how they've helped me connect more with my collection, with my writing, and with the people behind the craft. So if you've ever customized a nib or if you've ever thought about it, I'd really love to hear what that process was like for you. And if you haven't done that, have you thought about it? Has that been something that is on your wish list? Maybe the next time you go to a pen show, or maybe send your pen to be worked on by a nibmeister. And if you could change a favorite pen, what would you do to it? Anyway, thanks for spending some time with me today, and I really appreciate you listening to my love letter of how I've been able to personalize my pen collection so that it's more unique to me. And if you're on a similar journey or a totally different one, I hope this video encourages you to slow down, to reflect, and to enjoy the writing, and to enjoy not just the feel of that special pen in your hand, but also being able to see how it writes and being able to express yourself even more through the writing. And what I hope for you is that you find great satisfaction in whatever pen you reach for. So please, if any of this has resonated with you, I hope that you will like, subscribe, and that you'll come back and hang out on my channel with me a little bit more. I've certainly got some more pen reflections, some ink experience, and some slow collecting stories coming soon on Urban Ink Spot. Bye.